In early 2000s, a series of cold-blooded and mysterious murders takes place in St. Petersburg, Russia. Victims vary from a 2-year-old child and an old woman to a taxi driver and a student. Murder weapon is an antique pistol. And behind all of this, a group of murderers who have no respect for the law or human life.
Они говорили о том, что собирались произвести революцию в криминальном мире Санкт-Петербурга.
Hi, this is the Jonas channel, and in this video I will tell you the story of Andrei Telepin's gang. And as always, I hope you will enjoy this video. 15th of March 2001, Dmitry Bradis from St. Petersburg had to leave his country house and took his two sons, 2-year-old and 10-year-old, and his mother-in-law and went back to St. Petersburg. He had to do it because his youngest son got injured while playing outside. His wife and oldest son stayed in the country house. When they visited a doctor, it turned out that injury was somewhat serious. It was broken collarbone, and they needed to stay in the city so doctors could monitor a healing process. Dmitry called his wife and said that they will stay in St. Petersburg, and took his sons and mother-in-law to their apartment. He soon left to buy some groceries. Just only 1 hour after it, ambulance medic was calling police to tell that there was a double murder in Dmitry's apartment. When police arrived, what they saw shocked even experienced officers. A body of Dmitry's mother-in-law, who was apparently shot 3 times, and in the kitchen, dead body of 2-year-old child. It was Dmitry's son. Dmitry was already there and he was in state of shock. In that same apartment, 10-year-old son of Dmitry, Ivan, and his neighbor Selena Ponomarenko were telling police about what they saw. After Dmitry left to get the groceries, Ivan went to play outside. When he returned, he noticed that their apartment door is opened and there is no light in the hall. And it also was very silent. He knew that something is wrong and went to their neighbor, Selena Ponomarenko. Selena, when Ivan told her what happened, asked him to stay at her apartment and went to Bradis' flat to see what happened. When she entered, she saw bloodstains on the floor and also body of Dmitry's mother-in-law. At first she thought that she just fell and hit her head. Selena called an ambulance and shortly after it, Dmitry returned. She told him what happened and he instantly ran to see where is his 2-year-old son. Soon, Selena heard a horrific scream. It was Dmitry finding the body of his 2-year-old. Experts determined that Dmitry's mother-in-law was killed first in the hall and her body was dragged in the living room, and 2-year-old Vitalik was killed later. Somebody cut his throat. They also found a lot of fingerprints and footprints. There were at least 2 attackers. And 1 bullet casing was found near the apartment door. Judging by the crime scene, murderers tried to find something. Dmitry was working in a jewelry business, so they might have been searching for something valuable, but why did they kill an older woman and a child? Soon the results of ballistic expertise arrived. This type of bullet is used in very rare Browning pistol, model of the year 1906. For the past 2 weeks from this exact weapon, at least 2 more murders were committed. First, 20-year-old student of Military Naval University Valentin Rubashkin. He was killed 2nd of March by 3 shots in the head. His father Victor found his body. Attackers again made a mess in their apartment. Doors and windows were untouched, which makes you think that they might have known the victim, so he let them inside. Neighbors also didn't hear anything suspicious. Experts again found fingerprints and footprints and bullet casings from the same Browning pistol. Another victim who was killed from that same pistol was murdered the same day as the student. It was the taxi driver who was found shot 3 times in the head in the ditch near one of the streets of St. Petersburg. It was 42-year-old Alexei Novikov. The car that he worked on as the taxi driver wasn't found anywhere nearby. Investigators knew that criminals love to use taxi cars while going to commit crimes, because they aren't stopped by police as often as all other cars. So police started searching for Alexei's car all over St. Petersburg, hoping they will find more evidence there. As the main motive of all of the murders, robbery was the most obvious. When attackers killed Alexei, they took his car. From the apartment of Valentin Rubashkin, they stole video camera and 1,000 rubles, and Dmitry Bradis told police that robbers stole photo and video cameras. He didn't store anything valuable in his home like jewelry or money. Also, it was very likely that the gang was newly formed, because fingerprints had no matches in police databases. Investigators started diving deeper in lives of the victims, hoping to find some leads in this case. They found out that the father of murdered student Victor was recently freed from prison where he was jailed for a year for corruption. Allegedly, he didn't pay fully to one of his lawyers, so that lawyer sent some thugs that visited Victor a few times asking him to return the debt and threatened him, but they never did anything violent. Police found them, but they had a solid alibi, and their fingerprints also didn't match to ones found on the crime scenes. Another lead to police was given by a head officer of university where Valentin studied. He told police that when walking in the living quarters, he found some list of students that were allegedly visiting clubs and finding rich men and were providing them some intimate services for money. And apparently Valentin was on that list. The head officer didn't do anything about it because he had no proof of such behavior and he destroyed this paper. Investigators, after talking to students, found out that some of their classmates were actually involved in this activity. But after some deeper investigation, this led to nothing. Then the major breakthrough happened. The car of a murdered taxi driver was found in one of the quiet neighborhoods of Saint-Petersbourg. It had bloodstains inside. People in the neighborhood told that they saw 3 suspicious men near the SUV, parked not far from the abandoned taxi car. They were getting in and out of that SUV and were discussing something. When detectives looked inside the window of the SUV, they saw a human leg. When the car was opened, police found a body inside, with 3 bullet holes in the head, and on the floor of the car they found a bullet casing from the same Browning gun. When they found the owner of the SUV, she told that she gave this car to one of the security employees of her company a few days before he went on an errand. It was Vladimir Dobransky, and he was found dead in that same SUV. Further examination have shown that murderers tried to start this car multiple times, but hidden anti-theft system didn't let them do it. Detectives set up an ambush near the SUV, but nobody returned to it anymore. And then another call to police. Armed men tried to rob Koba Gordeladze, kickboxing champion of Russia. Somebody shot him trying to steal his car. In hospital, doctors extracted bullet from his head. It was from the same Browning gun. Surprisingly, injury was not life-threatening, and the next day, Koba, who was an exceptionally strong man, was already testifying to police, right from the hospital bed. He told that few days ago he put a note on his car with his number telling that he's selling it. A young guy called and he was willing to buy it. Koba agreed to meet and 2 young men arrived on the meeting day. When all 3 of them entered the car, Koba felt some suspicious movement behind him. He instinctively tried to dodge and felt something hit his head. One of 2 guys was holding a gun. After the first shot, the gun jammed, so kickboxing champion Koba started hitting both of the attackers as hard as he could. They panicked and ran away. He tried to chase them down but soon lost consciousness because of the bullet in his head. Koba was able to describe both of them, and what was more important, that he had number from which they called him. The number was a stationary phone that belonged to an apartment of a young student, Ivan Ogurtsov. His neighbors told police that Ivan often had a group of suspicious guys as guests. Police have set up surveillance on Ivan's apartment, but for a few days nobody was visiting him. Detectives assumed that the gang decided to lay low after the attack on Koba. Then they arrested and interrogated Ivan. He told that he was often visited by his friends. They were ex-students of the Military Naval University, same where Valentin Rubashkin studied. He said that they were discussing some crimes, but he didn't dig any deeper. He obviously told the detectives names of these friends. It was Andrei Telepin, his nickname was Telepath, and Zahar Kasabutsky, but he didn't know where they were at the moment. Detectives found out that both Telepin and Kasabutsky were expelled from university for poor results and discipline violations. By the rules of military service, they now needed to serve as sailors for up to 3 years. Both Telepin and Kasabutsky didn't want to do it, so they escaped soon after being expelled. After it, they were wanted by military prosecution, so they needed to hide. Checking their home addresses gave no results. But one of their classmates told detectives that they might be hiding in the apartment of one of their classmates, Anton Bibikov. So they arrested Anton and interrogated him. He told the officers that Telepin and Kasabutsky lived with him for a while, and he heard about the crimes but didn't take any part in them, and he was too afraid to go to police. He also gave police names of 2 other members of the gang, Alexei Tokmachov and Vladimir Lorchenkov, and gave their pistol and a shotgun that they hid in his apartment. Browning pistol he saw in Telepin's hands, but he didn't know where it is now. At this point, investigators came up with a plan. They called Andrei Telepin's parents in his hometown in Kabardino-Balkaria and pretended to be Koba's coach, telling that he knows about the attack. They told his parents that if Andrei wants to resolve what happened, he should just call this number. The next day, Andrei called back, and the detective, while pretending to be Koba's coach, made Andrei think that he's some kind of powerful mafia boss, and if Andrei will do him a favor, he will forgive him for shooting Koba. So basically, it was an invitation to join the mafia, and they also promised to pay for Andrei's trip back to St. Petersburg. Soon, Andrei Telepin went back to St. Petersburg to meet, as he thought, a mafia boss. The meeting was set up in a restaurant of one of the hotels. Police set up an ambush and hidden cameras, and after Andrei told about what he did, he was arrested. In 3 days, Zahar Kasabutsky was found by detectives and also arrested. Vladimir Lorchenkov was soon found in Moscow. A special police squad was sent to his apartment. While he was being arrested, he tried to flee and started shooting at the officers. They returned fire and he was killed. Alexei Tokmachov was found in prison. He was arrested for some minor crime. On first interrogation, Andrei Telepin was shocked that police knew about all the murders he and his gang committed. Soon, everyone started talking, and detectives figured out how all this happened. All 4 friends were in desperate need of money. Andrei and Zahar were hiding from military prosecution, and Vladimir and Alexei had big debts. Vladimir Lorchenkov sold his old car and got a Browning gun, which he gave to Andrei Telepin, as he was the gang leader. Andrei told his friends that he heard Valentin Rubashkin saying that he has a stash at home with $5,000. Soon, Telepin, Lorchenkov, and Kasabutsky took a taxi to Valentin Rubashkin's house. Alexei Novikov was the taxi driver. When they almost got there, Andrei told him to stop, and unexpectedly for Lorchenkov and Kasabutsky, shot Alexei in the head. They were shocked, but Andrei told them that they needed a car. They hid Alexei's body in the trunk and went to Rubashkin's apartment. Valentin recognized his classmates and let them in, and as soon as he opened the door, Alexei Telepin shot him in the head 3 times. After the search, they didn't find the stash with money, only camera and 1,000 rubles. When they went back to car, they drove to another location where they dumped Alexei's body. Before leaving, Telepin told Lorchenkov to make 2 more shots in Alexei's head so they would be bound by blood. Then the gang tried to sell the car, but potential buyers, who were criminals specializing in stolen cars, told that they aren't interested in taxi car, but they will gladly buy an SUV. So Telepin's gang started roaming streets of St. Petersburg in search of an SUV to steal. That's how they found the car with Vladimir Dobryansky. They ambushed him when he parked in one of the quiet streets and shot in the head 3 times, but because of anti-theft system, they couldn't start the car again. So they abandoned both cars and left. Lorchenkov returned back in the next few days with car theft professionals, but they couldn't start the car either. Andrei was pissed because anything they did, they couldn't get the money. Soon the gang was joined by a new member, Alexei Tokmachov. He knew about famous jeweler Dmitry Braidis and the location of his apartment. So they set up the surveillance on the Braidis apartment, and when Dmitry left, Alexei Tokmachov, dressed as police officer, called the doorbell. And when Dmitry's mother-in-law opened, Tokmachov and Telepin entered the apartment. Andrei shot her 3 times in the head right away. They moved her body to another room and started searching for jewelry. 2-year-old son of Dmitry started crying. Telepin ordered Tokmachov to take care of him, and Alexei killed Dmitry's son with his pocket knife. The next and last assault of Telepin's gang was on Koba Gordeladze, and it was fatal for them because Koba survived. The city court of St. Petersburg sentenced Zahar Kasabutsky, who didn't commit any murders, to 5 years in prison. Alexei Tokmachov, for killing a 2-year-old, was sentenced to 20 years in prison, and the gang leader Andrei Telepin was sentenced to life in prison. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Bye.